You mentioned earlier this evening to me that we are kind of locked into a limited five senses world, but there are secrets that can help us unlock more senses, that there are as many as 105, I believe you talked about. Could you discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, well, there are. If you look at through some of the ancient religious texts, you look at through some of the even the Japanese teachings of the founder of Aikido. What's his name? Morihei Ueshi or something like that. I can't remember. Yushiba. He was the founder of Aikido. He talks about all the different senses of reality. There's a man called Paul Helfrich who wrote a book about the Egyptian concept of all these the senses. He says there's 9 main higher senses, and that they're each in 3 specific parts. There's the empathetically based senses, there's the conceptually based senses, and there's time-based senses. So these are sort of the 3 main areas of the 9 senses. But if you go through all of these, if you go through the different types of conceptual and emphatic senses, there's different degrees of all of them, and each one is like a sense of its own. So, and there are like 105 of these. If you go through the whole lot, there ends up being around about 105. And a lot of people were aware of these senses, like the conceptual sense. People like Nikola Tesla was obviously very aware of the conceptual sense. I mean, the conceptual sense is used for comprehending the deeper essentials of nature, the concept of ideas. It's like experiencing a concept completely within your mind, to the extent of being completely in your mind. Like Nikola Tesla could actually, when he was inventing an object, he could look at it in his head, he could visualize it, he could turn it around, he could pull out a micrometer and measure off parts of it, and then go and build the thing on a machine. He didn't actually have to do any drawings. He could do the whole drawing, the whole schematic layout, right down to measuring the parts in his head. That's why it's so hard to decipher any of the stuff he put out, because he had this conceptual sense. So he obviously had a lot of these senses happening. That's why he said, if you want to understand the universe, you've got to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And look what Tesla could do. So these are the sort of things that people need to understand. But because we're locked in this narrow bandwidth, we only use 1/10 of our brain. The other 9/10 we don't use. That's where these other senses lie. These 105 other senses. That's where they lie. And it's sort of hard for people to get their head around this and get a grasp on it. But if you can consider that what you're looking at when you look out your eyes is a very, very narrow bandwidth. It's like listening to a radio station. You're only tuned into one frequency. But that doesn't mean all the other frequencies and all the other stations out there that are broadcasting don't exist. It's just that you're listening to this one frequency. So we don't get to hear the other stations. We don't get to hear or see the rest of reality because we're locked into this one frequency. But it's there. It's all around us, and we have all these senses and another 9/10 of our brain that we don't use. So that's what you need to unlock. That's what you need to look at some of these spiritual teachings for, and that's what you need to concentrate on. And this is all connected. This whole thing is connected. We are all connected. All reality is connected. All consciousness is connected. All energetic particles are connected. And ultimately all there is these energetic particles, these energetic waves of photons and phonons. So that's the way it works.
Yes. Your radio analogy was a wonderful explanation. I think you just broke through hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Do you think, Max, that it kind of works that way with our thought process when we have thoughts that are of muck, that's where we tend to draw a habit into going, that frequency, that radio station, that we just go there. And that's why people have a troublesome time changing their life, is because they become a habit in thinking particular thoughts, if they're negative or whatever. And we have to actually aim that antenna in a different direction or change that dial, and then we can pick up better thoughts and start changing our own personal reality. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, very much, John, very much. People are actually addicted to their emotions and their beliefs, whether they realize it or not. It's an addiction. If you look at the way peptides work in the brain and you look at the receptors of the brain, this is why it's so hard for people to focus on what they want rather than what they don't want. This is how the power of attraction works. If people sit there and they worry about their bills all day, all they're going to get is more bills. If they sit there and focus and say, thank you, I'm glad all the bills are paid and I haven't got any more bills coming in, and put themselves in that feeling, then all their bills will get paid quite easily and they won't attract many more bills into their lives. But they've been trained, our left brain thinking of our society and our education trains us to worry about things. And this becomes like a drug for the brain. We release these peptides and they go through and they find these little receptors on the brain and they plug these little receptors up, and it's like we've got our fix for the day. We've got our dose, our emotional dose of peptides. This happens. We get addicted to these. Now, brain cells are renewed all the time. Now, as new brain cells are renewed, if these brain cells that are used to getting negative peptides attached to them all the time, when they're produced, they produce more receptors for these negative peptides because that's what they're used to getting. So you end up losing the receptors on your brain where you can actually feel happiness and feel positive emotions. And it isn't until you start actually trying to feel these things again that you'll start developing receptors on your brain again. This is the way it works. And even if you're there in a positive state, you're trying to put yourself in a positive state and maintain a state of love, your brain's going to go, hang on, I'm not getting my fix. Start worrying about this, start worrying about that, start worrying about the war, start worrying about... Because you are hardwired into having those emotions in your head. You're hardwired into experiencing those peptides, and your brain needs some sort of an energy and emotional boost to create reality. It needs this because your brain is a quantum generator that generates thoughts into reality and emotions into reality. So it needs food. It needs constant replenishing. And people get hardwired into these negative states. And whether they know it or not, they're addicted to it. It's an addiction. We all have them. Every single person is addicted to their emotions, whether they want to admit it or not. It's the truth. And it's a hard thing. It can be a very hard thing to change this. But if once you become aware of it, you become aware of how it works. It's quite easy to change it because you can put yourself in this energetic state, in this love, positive state. It's like an incredible feeling. It's like a rush you get over your body, and you just want to keep experiencing this. So, and that creates more of these receptors in your brain, and so you can get yourself addicted to the right peptides because you're going to be addicted to some because your brain needs them. Your brain positively needs this input. It needs it from somewhere. So it's up to what peptides you're generating, what emotions you're putting into the brain as to what reality you are manifesting. And this is why they do everything the way they do, to keep people in this low energy state. It's very important for people to understand this.
Wow, fascinating explanation.